Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Psych 18. This is Dr. Grace Estrada, and we are going to cover Chapter 11, Presenting Your Research. Let's go ahead and get started. So now that you have learned the basic foundations of scientific method, and we've looked at all these different research methods, now it's time to learn about presenting the research. And so we are going to start off with a little recap of mechanics of APA. So APA stands for American Psychological Association. And when we talk about that, we're really talking about a type of writing that the APA has developed. And really, it's a form of writing formal papers. So it applies to all academic presentations. And that includes not only research reports, but also academic papers, any kind of academic papers and posters as well. So we are now in APA 7, meaning there have been 7 kind of iterations of this form of writing. And I actually find that the changes that happen from APA 6 are really well done. So when we talk about formatting in the mechanics of APA, this includes things like where you're going to have things in boldface or underline, when you're going to italicize, what things go in parentheses, where you indent, where you center, and also how you use punctuation and capitalization. Now, that is the mechanics. Now let's talk about the actual proposal. So in this class, you're being asked to write a research proposal. Why? Well, first of all research starts with a proposal. So as a student, what I'm asking you to do is really demonstrating your understanding and your ability to apply the information that you've learned in this class so far. So it's really demonstrate understanding and application of research design principles. Also, you're going to show me that you can select, comprehend, and evaluate appropriate scholarly sources, which is the whole reference page component. You're not only going to write a research proposal now as students, but really when you are a researcher, you will be writing research proposals. And what it does, it gives you this opportunity to really refine your thinking about a certain topic. And also, how are you going to develop a certain direction in terms of how you want to explore a certain that topic or concept? You have to submit research proposals to the government and local funding agencies. So you don't just start off conducting your research. You actually have to pull together a proposal and be able to present it in a coherent, concise manner that will actually have these agencies want to fund your research. Really, that's what it comes down to. So in your research report, so we have the research proposal. A research report, on the other hand, is written after the fact. So you have your research proposal, you conduct your research, now you write your research report, right? So that's how it works. In terms of the proposal, you are going to write it in the form of a report, but instead of writing, this is what we did, this is what we are going to do. So the idea is you are describing the potential study that you want. So you're going to explain what will be done, what may be found, so those are anticipated results, how it will contribute to existing knowledge, right? Those are the 3 parts that people want to know. Has it been done before? If so, why are we going to fund this? So what is new about it? What do you expect to find? So you're not going to conduct research without having some idea of what are the sort of findings you're going to have, and you're going to explain why we want to fund it. What is the contribution that's going to be to society or to general knowledge? So no proposal is going to be funded if it's on a topic, approach, or something that's already been done before. What you have to do is present a rationale. Why are you proposing this new study? You're also going to indicate the design. So this is why this is being discussed after we've studied all these different research design. Who are the participants? What's the group that you plan to study? What kind of measures are you going to employ? What are the procedures? What kind of steps are involved? And you're also going to have anticipated results. So let's talk about rationale. Rationale is your way of establishing the importance of your study. This is so important because this is really your selling point. Why are we interested? So you're going to explain why you should conduct the study. And there are three main components you need to consider. Prevalence. Is this phenomena happening to a significant number of people? Relevance. Is what is happening important? Is it impacting people's lives? And finally, precedence. Is this the first time any kind of studies is happening? Or what is the original aspect of the study that you're proposing? That's the precedence we're talking about. So in terms of your design is really going to be based on your research question and your research goal. If your research question has to do with establishing causality, does drinking, 3 cups of coffee improve cognitive performance? We're talking causality. Then your design is going to be an experimental study. So we've looked at several different types of designs, right? So you have experiments, but remember that within experiments, you have between subjects, within subjects. Are you doing post-test only, pre-test, post-test? Are you going to do a quasi-experimental design where you have interrupted time series design? There's so many different types of specific designs. So you need to explain which one you're pursuing. You also need to justify, why is this the best way to answer your research question? So what are things to consider? First of all, your approach. Is it going to be qualitative? If it's qualitative, then that means you have to put a lot of work into the analysis component, right? In terms of interpreting the words, interviews, transcripts, things that people say. Quantitative, right, is appropriate when you're testing some sort of hypothesis. So qualitative, usually you're doing that for theory development. When you all want to learn more deeply about certain experiences that people are having, then you probably want to go qualitative. Quantitative is for hypothesis testing. So if you already have a very good idea of what it is that you're investigating, but want to test the theories that go with it, then you go with quantitative. But remember, there's also mixed methods, in which case you would combine a qualitative component with a quantitative one. So maybe it could be some surveys, which would be quantitative, and then you could interview people. So you could actually do both for your study. Time frame. Is it going to be something that's sort of a snapshot of what's happening, in which case it would be cross-sectional? Is it going to be a long-term where you have the same group of people and then you follow them over time, which is longitudinal? Or you can combine, sort of have the best of both of those worlds and do cohort sequential or sequential, in which case you start off with a cross-sectional design and then you follow them over time, similar to a longitudinal design. How about your participants? Are you planning to do group research on a large number of people, or maybe small group or single subject research? So you need to decide. Again, you need to justify. If you are doing an experiment or a quasi-experiment, are you going to do it repeated measures or between groups? So remember, if you're doing a quantitative study, you want to have as many data points as possible. That's either going to be through number of participants, which in case it would be between groups, or it'd be through getting a lot of data points on the same participants, in which case that would be repeated measures or within groups. And what kind of design, as I mentioned before, are you going to go non-experimental, quasi-experimental, experimental, factorial? You have to be specific. So these are general designs, and then you have to give me more details, like, is it going to be interrupted time series? Or is it going to be, between non-equivalent groups with switching replication? the idea is you really want to demonstrate to me that you know and understand these different research designs and also understand when it is appropriate to use them. Participants. So it's important to identify your sampling frame. So who will they be? Are you going to focus on a specific gender identity or age group or race or socioeconomic status? A lot of times, if you are interested in a phenomenon that already has quite a few studies done, one way to make it original could be by focusing on a specific group. Also with your participants, you're going to think about what would be the criteria for inclusion or exclusion. So maybe we're focusing on adolescents, but we're only going to focus on adolescents who are attending public school or something like that. So you would describe the criteria that you're going to be using. Also, where geographically will you find them? So if it's not going to be some kind of online posting, then maybe you might discuss looking at a specific area, or perhaps the way to make your study original is to go for a specific geographical location that has been studied well. How many will there be? So you want to think about the breakdowns and also the importance really of having the groups to compare. Also, will they be compensated or not? So when we talk about research proposals, part of it is also establishing the cost of the study. And so if you're going to be compensating your participants, you need to mention this in the proposal. Measures. When we talk about measures, I'm saying really, what are your operational definitions of your independent variable and dependent variable? How are you going to measure it? So remember, you have conceptual definitions that will be established through your literature review. So in the conceptual definitions, you're going to cite a lot of studies. And really what you're telling the reader is that you know what you're talking about. You've already done a lot of the research. And so what you are basing your study on is on previous studies that have been established. So what you're doing is you're establishing construct validity, right? When you're talking about the conceptual definitions. Operational definitions has to do with internal validity. So remember that for your operational definition, it's got to be measurable, specific, and observable. I do recommend that if you are going to use a survey, if you want to, even if you're developing your own, also use an established survey, right? So one that's already been published in another study actually establishes really good internal validity and also construct validity. So you want to make sure if you are using an established survey, you want to make sure that you are properly citing your source. Also in your proposal, you're going to include some sample questions. If you are having a self-made survey, as I mentioned before, you include sample questions. And if you're using the established survey as well, guess what? You could be establishing concurrent validity or convergent validity. There are different types of validity that you would actually be able to establish if you have your self-made survey and an existing established survey as well. You also want to justify why you're using these measures. There are many, many measures in psychology, so you want to make sure you reassure the reader that you are choosing the best measure possible. Procedures. So this is almost the last step in the proposal. With procedures, you're going to describe how you plan to conduct your study. And here you're establishing to the reader that you have a solid idea of how it is you're going to conduct your research. It's also important to kind of give an idea of the approximate time frame. So maybe it'll be, will it be a couple of months before you finally recruit everyone you want and finish the analysis? Just give a step-by-step plan, as it's important for the procedures. Also, keep in mind APA ethics. You do not want to do anything that is unethical to your participants. So in your conclusion, you're going to add the anticipated results. What may be found? What do you think you're going to find? And this should be based on previous research. You need to back it up, right? Also, you're going to establish how is it going to contribute to existing knowledge about the topic or to psychology generally, maybe even how it will improve society. Okay, so now that you know sort of the breakdown of what is expected in content, how about the breakdown of points? So the research proposal is worth 75 points. And really there are three main areas. Part one is essentially a lit review. So you start off talking about your topic, establishing, why it's important. And then you go into your sources, right? So the idea is you're going to have these scholarly and non-scholarly sources, and you don't need to describe the claims from every single one. You could be doing it more holistically. Like, let's say you're finding a trend. And when you do that, you can cite multiple sources at the same time. So perhaps it is, previous research has shown that emerging adults are particularly susceptible to energy boosts when drinking 3 or more cups of coffee. And then let's say you have 4 sources saying that, then you would cite those 4 sources, right? So you are stating a claim, and then you include the citation to indicate that it is empirically supported, and it really makes your study stronger. You want to be able to describe the claims from the sources, but also describe the evidence used in the sources. That's really important too. So I'm not only looking for the claims, I want you to talk about how did they support the claims? Did they have, was it a meta-analysis where they looked at previous studies? Did they talk to experts? Was it a primary source study, in which case it's the results from the research? You have to describe the evidence. Finally, you want to evaluate the sources and kind of give, how did they contribute to your thought process? So inquisitiveness is 3 points. Describing claims from sources is 5 points. Describing evidence using sources is 5 points. Evaluating claims, evaluating the sources and contributions, another 5 points, and comparing the sources is 5 points. Also, quality of sources selected is 2 points. So remember, your sources should not be more than 5 years old, and each one should relate to the topic. Okay, so that's part one. So after you've kind of discussed these different studies, then toward the end of part one, you should be saying, I noticed after reading all of these studies that there is a gap in the literature. This is why I am making my proposal. And so that would be the segue into part two, which is the research proposal. So you would have to establish your rationale. Remember the justification for why you are conducting this research and why it's important. The type of design that you're going to be using. Participants, this includes a sampling frame. Also, your recruitment plan would be there as well. Any kind of measures you're going to be using, so your operational definitions. Your step-by-step plan of how you're going to do it. And finally, your conclusion will have your anticipated results. So each of these are worth 5 points each for a total of 25. So 25 plus 25, that's 50. And then finally have your writing style, which is 20 points. Sorry, that should say 30 points for part two. So writing style is 20 points, and that would be your introduction, your body, conclusion. Make sure you're using transition sentences, grammar and spelling, and your AP format is worth 6 points because I am going to deduct 0.1 for every error that you make in your final paper. So this is some clips from the rubric. And this is, so because you're putting into turnitin.com, I couldn't include a rubric directly with the assignment. So there's another assignment that has a rubric, and it's literally how I will be grading your paper. So for example, if we look at the introduction, what is it going to get you the full points? Well, you need to introduce a topic, Make sure that it captures the reader's interest. So number 4 is the best, the highest score you can get. Gives brief background of the topic to the reader, enough to understand the ideas, explain the significance of the topic, have your thesis clearly and specifically stated, and also outline the paper. So the rubric is provided so you know exactly what I am expecting. And I will be using the rubric as I grade your papers. And as you can see for APA, what am I looking for? APA style format consistently and correctly used for title page, abstract, general paper format, in-text citations, and reference page. Make sure all your sources cited in the paper are in the reference page and vice versa. All sources in the reference page are cited at least once in the body of your paper. So this is just an example. Remember, I have the annotated version of this as well, which is all marked up and help you know what to look for. Just briefly, let's see the running head, as you can see, is all in uppercase, and it is flush left. Then on the same line is the page number. As you look at the title is level 1 boldface, and also keep in mind it's in title case. So how to write an API style research paper. When we talk about title case, that means all words, 3 characters or more, are capitalized. Okay, your abstract. So that should always be on page 2. The abstract, as you can see, the title is a level 1 title, also in boldface. Note that it is 1 paragraph. It will not be indented, and it should be about 150 to 250 words. You would write your abstract last because it's essentially a summary of your paper. And you want to make sure that it's done really well because you're so limited. Keywords is indented 1/2 inch from the left margin. It is capitalized in terms of the K, and it's italicized. But the actual keywords are not italicized. That's something important to keep in mind. Okay. Introduction. Your introduction should capture the reader's attention. It should give a brief background on the topic and explain the significance of the topic. Finally, it's important that it presents the thesis of the paper. And also you should have the outline. So if you're majoring in psychology, be prepared to write many, many papers. American Psychological Association established APA style almost 100 years ago in 1929. It was created to facilitate communication between and among readers. So kind of giving you a little background. And here's the outline. We will cover the most important components of a research proposal. First, we will give a brief overview of the general format used in APA style. We will then detail the mechanics of what is involved. Finally, we will conclude with the essential elements of APA style. So just a few paragraphs, just a few sentences, but it actually captures a lot of important information. Your reference page, as you can see, it will be one of the last pages. The title is going to be references in boldface and centered, no underline, no colon, right? You're going to be using a hanging indent, as you can see. The entries are going to be in alphabetical order by author's last name or the institutional name, for instance, Purdue University. Remember that in a scholarly article, a primary source article, the title is not italicized. In a book or in a non-scholarly article, the title is italicized. All titles in APA 7 are going to be in sentence case, meaning only the first word and the first word after a colon or punctuation mark will be capitalized. Links are in boldface in APA, something else to remember. Also, you only use the retrieve by date if you don't have a publication date. So sample paper breakdown, remember we talked a little bit about these headings. Level 1 heading is always going to be centered and bold-faced, so keep that in mind. So here, he's sort of giving you an overview of the different headings. And yes, that's it. Yep, you're going to end with your reference page. So hopefully this was helpful in terms of helping you understand what the research paper entails and what I'm going to be looking for. And I look forward to seeing you all again or connecting with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.